Hi, I'm Nodvar and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be ranking video game characters based on their survivability rate if they were to come up against Friday the 13th slasher villain Jason Voorhees. Before we start though, we need to cover a few ground rules because there's plenty of iterations of the horror icon. So today, for consistency's sake, we're going to go under the assumption that this is the 2009 remake Jason we're talking about. I don't want to hear any mention of Zombie Jason from Jason Lives Onward or Uber Jason from Jason X, and I definitely don't want anyone to bring up the Roy Burns Jason because that guy sucks. The Jason we're looking at from the remake is still a human being and is portrayed more as an angry hunter survivalist who can also use his brain as much as his brawn, as he can set traps and he also uses underground tunnels throughout the movie. Another thing that makes this Jason more intimidating is the fact that he can actually run. He doesn't rely on his slow walking pace and his random teleporting abilities. We're also going under the assumption that these characters have stumbled into Camp Crystal Lake, perhaps looking for a nice vacation from their respective video game worlds. So they're going to be in Jason's home turf, and they're also going to be unsuspecting of him. We're also going to make a rule that they're not aware that you can just pretend to be this guy's mum to distract him. However, if they do survive long enough, they are able to figure it out. Before we get into the ranking though, we also have to go through the tier list, so let's start from the bottom up. The first tier is called the token character, and it's based on the long-standing stereotype of the token minority always dying first in horror movies. If they're in this tier, they don't stand a chance and they'll just get stomped out by Jason pretty quickly. The next tier is I think we should split up. This tier doesn't die straight away, but survives long enough to say the horror movie taboo line, I think we should split up. This always leads to their inevitable death, and they don't put up much of a fight either. Our third tier is called Julius Gore, and this tier is named after the character in Jason Takes Manhattan, who absolutely throws down against zombie Jason and seems to do a pretty good job at it. Unfortunately, Jason has taken some boxing tips from Homer Simpson and uses the technique of just getting beat until the opponent tires himself out, so Julius eventually gets killed anyway. But he gets a good amount of licks in first, so this tier is for those who would put up a good fight but inevitably lose out to the J-Man. Our penultimate tier is named after who I can only imagine is Jason's mortal enemy, Lionel Richie, and is called the All Night Long tier. This tier survives all night long, whether it be by outsmarting or outmuscling Jason. The distinction in this tier is that they may survive, but they might not necessarily kill Jason. So if they were to be put in this situation 100 times, they make it out around 85 of them. Our final tier for a select few is called Say Hi to Mummy in Hell, stolen directly from the remake. This tier is reserved for characters that flat out kill Jason one-to-one and have a nice enjoyable stay at Camp Crystal Lake. So with those tiers out the way, let's get to it. Ellie, The Last of Us. Starting off our list, we have Ellie from The Last of Us. I feel like Ellie has a knack to be able to survive in the woods around Camp Crystal Lake. She'll be able to craft useful items and have the general wiliness to avoid Jason once she figures out he's stalking her. I do feel like though with remake Jason, he may eventually figure out the bricks and bottles being broken around him and nothing more than a smokescreen trap to try and distract him, so he might stop falling for that after a while. I think if they both got into an actual scrap, Jason's winning that 10 out of 10, but using Joel's lessons of survival and the constant need to be hyper alert in the world she lives in, she might not let the J-Man get the drop on her. So at the end of the day, I think Ellie just avoids him all night, and that's why we're going to put her in the all night long category. I also feel like Ellie's the only one on our list that would figure out Jason's weakness of pretending to be his mum, and she could actually put that to good use. Banjo-Kazooie. When I came up with this list, I thought Banjo was a brown bear and was ready to put him in the highest tier. However, to my disappointment, I looked up his breed online and it turns out he's this sad looking thing called a sun bear. Go Google it if you haven't seen it. Now I don't recall in any of the Friday movies Jason ever going after wildlife, so I think Banjo and Kazooie's best bet is to just casually stand around the forest and try to act normal. However, as Banjo is wearing pants and has a bird in his backpack and is all around just generally anthropomorphic, I feel like our smart Jason would figure this out eventually and start hunting them down. As far as I know, a sun bear is pretty small, and even if it did have some sort of strength, our durable survivalist Jason would get the better of him. I'll put Banjo-Kazooie in the I think we should split up column, because I think they do a pretty good job disguising themselves as wildlife initially before being found out. They also have that bullshit move in Banjo-Tooie where they literally do split up, so maybe Kazooie could just make a run for it while Banjo's getting absolutely brained by a machete or something. I don't know. Cuphead. Now I don't even know what Cuphead is and how we would go about being in Camp Crystal Lake. However, I feel like if he went in prepared and was there to collect Jason's soul for the devil, maybe he might be able to adjust his loadout for the scrap. But for this list, we're going that he's unassuming and is set on by Jason as he casually strolls through the campgrounds. That also being said, I feel like Cuphead's always packing and he has the ability to shoot out of his hands, and he also has 3 lives. Using that and his pure agility, he might get a couple good licks in before Jason was able to take all his health. I think Cuphead puts up a decent fight. He'll injure Jason, but overall he'd be bested most of the time. For that reason, I guess I'm going to put Cuphead in the Julius Gore rank. Andrew Ryan. Now this one's going to be a bit of a stretch, but you have to hear me out. I want to put Andrew Ryan in the I think we should split up category rather than the token character, and that's for one reason. Bear with me while I paint the picture for you. Picture if Rapture was set under Camp Crystal Lake. Andrew Ryan emerges. Now don't tell me he doesn't have some sort of mind control phrase to protect him from Jason, at least initially. Then, after he's survived long enough to get through the token character phase, I feel like his narcissism will get to his head and he'd want to go out on his own terms, so he'd command Jason to take him out with his machete or something. So that's why I think I promoted him to the I think we should split up tier, because he'd only died due to some stupid egotistical decision. Toad. Like Cuphead, I don't really know what Toad is, like some sort of mushroom man. I can't really see him putting up much of a fight either against Jason at all. I think his pure cowardice would give away any hiding spot he's actually in. Maybe if he was Captain Toad and he was exploring underground, he might last a bit longer. But without Jason and all his pathway caves underground he has, I think that eventually just happen onto each other and Toad would get stomped out pretty quickly on this one. Toad's going to be our first character in the token character tier. Vault Boy. Now Vault Boy is going to be an interesting one here because we're talking about the game character and the mascot for Vault Tech, not the man who inspired him, which we found out in the show. As he's merely a brand mascot, I'm going to put Vault Boy in the all night long category because he's basically unkillable. That is, unless Jason takes a leaf out of the Springfields playbook like in that episode where the Lard Lad Donut guy comes to life. But that took a catchy song to kill him and I don't think Jason can hold a tune. Kratos. Kratos is quite literally the god of war and he has a shit ton of godlike powers. Without scaling him down at all, he has more durability, more raw power and more aggressive running style than Jason. As our Jason in this series is definitely killable, and Kratos has killed the likes of Zeus, Boulder, and won in hand-to-hand combat against Dr. Glassman from The Good Doctor, I feel like fighting Jason would be a cakewalk. So add Kratos to the top tier, say hi to Mummy in Hell. Ashley Graham. This is another one I think people will be surprised isn't in the token character list. But I think she actually survives for quite a bit, as our Jason might abduct her like Whitney in the remake for having some sort of resemblance to his mum. However, with all things Camp Crystal Lake, shit would eventually hit the fan, maybe Leon tries to come save her or something, and as soon as she tries to escape, I think she quickly gets brained by Jason. I mean, if you watch the movie, it took Sam Winchester and someone who is somewhat capable to take him down, and I just don't think Leon and Ashley would work together all that well, so they'd eventually split up and then Ashley would be overpowered. I'm putting Ashley in there, I think we should split up tier. Eski? Eske. This lazy, stay puffed marshmallow man is ridiculously overpowered for Claire Obscure. The only reason I had to somewhat debate putting him in the say hi to Mummy in Hell tier is because I think he'd genuinely just be chilling on the lake and survivalist Jason wouldn't even try to start smoke with him. If he did though, let's say Jason stole one of his rocks or something, that fight would last all of 2 seconds as SK just flies through him or something like that. SK is obviously on the say hi to Mummy tier list. Gary, Fallout 3. The fabled Gary clones of Vault 108 against Jason I feel would be the closest we could get to see if 100 men could beat a gorilla. I think in the lore there's only around 50-ish Garys, but I suppose Jason would get beat by a gorilla too, so they're both somewhat scaled down. I feel like the sheer numbers alone would let Gary get a few good licks in against the J-Man, but as they're fairly poorly coordinated and dispatched of just as easy, Jason would start tearing through them as they wear down and eventually take care of all of them. Gary and his clones, because they do get a good couple punches in, are in the Julius Gore tier. Corvo. Now if we're talking about Corvo before the Penguin from Gotham gives him the outsider's mark, I feel like he may have a pretty good scrap with Jason, but with just a blink ability alone, Corvo would absolutely smoke him immediately in any circumstances. He's also a trained bodyguard, so I feel like he'd be pretty hyper vigilant too if Jason did try anything sneaky on him. However, rather than put him in the say hi to Mummy tier, Corvo goes in the all night long list. And that's because I think he could beat Jason, but if he is going for a killless run, he'd find some way to take him out non-lethally. Hence, no death means he doesn't get to see Mummy in Hell. Jason. Now I'm not going to insult your intelligence to pretend I played the NES Friday the 13th game. I fear you'd detect the lies in my voice if I did. All I know about this Jason is apparently this game was hard as fuck, and I'm pretty sure he has some supernatural powers in that game, immediately making him a lot more unstoppable than the remake Jason he'd face. I don't know, maybe remake Jason would outpace him if he decided to run away, but I don't think either Jason would play that way, and the NES Jason would win 10 out of 10 times. He's going in the say hi to Mummy in Hell tier. Master Chief. While I have played every Halo, I'd be pissing on your leg and telling you it's raining if I said I knew anything about Master Chief lore. I know it's supposed to be some sort of badass, but I like to think if he was just on vacation at Camp Crystal Lake and Jason bailed him up without being prepared, he'd just be 2 heavy hitters going at it. I feel like Master Chief would have the edge early, but once his shields come down, he lacks the durability of Jason and would go down in a one-on-one fight. And I think for that reason, I'm going to put Master Chief in the Julius Gore tier. Now, I think out of all the ones on the list, that's the one that will piss the most people off, but before you get too pissed off, remember, I'm just a doctor, I don't make the needle sharp. Claptrap. This is probably another one of those ones where I think Jason might initially ignore him, but just get irritated and destroy him immediately. I don't see Claptrap putting up much of a fight in this one. I don't think the game version has any chance, and I never saw the movie, but maybe the Jack Black version could do something about it. Who knows, Claptrap's going in the token character column. Now that's going to wrap up our definitive tier list of how characters would fare against Friday the 13th remake Jason Voorhees. If you disagree with me or you agree, let me know your opinions in the comments, and tell me what tier you think that dude from the Outer Worlds who wears a moon mask would go in. This was purely just a bonus video for the channel. Make sure to subscribe for more video game recaps and reviews, and our next tier list where we're going to rank Fallout characters by the likelihood they'd ruin the Lone Wanderer's 10th birthday. From that, I've been Nodvoro, this has been a ridiculous video, and you've been great.